You're listening to Audio Suplex Live, Episode 5, brought to you by the Nerd Complex Podcast Network. Hey guys.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
We're doing fantastic. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. We're on the road to WrestleMania, and this is always my favorite time of year.
We are on the Fastlane.
Fastlane to WrestleMania.
So, as always, I am Travis, and I'm here with Shawn.
Hello again. And glad to be back.
And of course, our producer with the most, Joe. Joe, say what's up.
What's up?
He muted himself.
So my co-host, as always, Corey, is out this week. He is vacationing with his lady friend in parts unknown. Best of luck to Corey this week. Hopefully he has a good vacation and
no heel maneuvers.
Heel Corey only knows heel maneuvers. He has 5 moves and they're all like eye rakes, back scratches, groin chops and everything like that. That's all he knows.
I don't know why it just made me remember Ready to Rumble when they're in the bedroom. Foreign object.
Oh my god, I forgot about that scene. That scene's so great. So we're gonna do kind of like a svelte, slim down episode this week. I've got myself here, and then coming back to the show from our Elimination Chamber preview special, Shawn.
Glad to be back, and like I said, it's an exciting time of year. We got one more pay-per-view, and then we got WrestleMania coming up in less than a month.
Yeah, and we'll kind of get into it when we do our recaps of all the shows this week, but you pretty much everything you're doing right now is, they've got a couple things to blow off on Raw brand for Fastlane, but everything else is basically just setting up for Mania.
Pretty much, and I mean, then you got SmackDown, who's already, they're already building for WrestleMania because they got a whole month, until. So
yeah,
I mean,
so they've got to get those storylines in now. So, but as always, we want to kind of start with some of the news from this past week. So, Joe, you want to cue us up for some news? One day we'll get that right. Let me try that one more time. Hey, Joe, you want to cue us up for some news? All right. So our first story this week was Kevin Owens was on the 228 episode of the Steve Austin podcast. And on the show, aside from Steve Austin giving him tips on how to properly deliver a Stone Cold Stunner, Kevin Owens hinted at a DVD about his career being produced by WWE was already in the works. WWE confirmed the story on Twitter and confirmed that Fight Owens Fight, the Kevin Owens story, would be releasing July 2017 and released a teaser trailer about like a 30-second little tidbit about the DVD. Shawn, I know we talked about this a little bit before the show went on air. Kevin Owens, obviously a big part of his career was his time in the Indies before coming to WWE. And I know we mentioned previously with the CM Punk DVD that they had gotten stuff from ROH and other indie feds to kind of like bolster up that story. Do you think that they're going to go all out and just acknowledge everything?
I mean, you kind of have to, don't you? I mean, a lot of his career was ROH. So, I mean, that's kind of like, okay, taking like the Titanic and you showing the movie, but not showing the fact that it got hit by an iceberg. I mean,
good analogy.
That's you're taking away a lot of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to know is one of his bigger feuds in ROH was with Generico.
El Generico, who is currently in South America with the orphans.
With the orphans, running an orphanage.
And definitely not Sami Zayn.
Yes.
So
that was one of the most brilliant explanations for what happened to El Generico.
He actually confirmed. I saw an interview with Kevin Owens, I want to say about a year or so ago around Mania time on the Sam Roberts podcast, where somebody asked him about El Generico and he goes, "Oh, El Generico is dead." Just basically like putting an end to that. That was as
brilliant as I don't know if you've ever seen it on YouTube. A fan asked Bray Wyatt, like early on in the Bray Wyatt gimmick, around his first run, asked him, being a smart mark, because WWE wants us to forget all the previous gimmicks, went up to Bray Wyatt and goes, "What happened to Husky Harris?" Bray Wyatt had the best response ever. He goes, "Husky Harris was weak, and I needed a vessel."
Whoa.
You can't write a better response than that.
I've never seen that. That's actually really, I have to look that up. That's a
That was
response.
That was one of the most beautiful responses I've ever heard.
Oh my goodness. I watched a show not too long ago where somebody, like, I think it was the SmackDown after he won the WWE championship, and some idiot in the crowd yelled out Husky Harris really loud. Come on. Like, okay guys, we get it. You know what wrestling is, and you used to watch NXT back in the day. Great. Good.
I mean, like, look, half those guys in Nexus alone all went through.
Oh yeah.
Huge character change. I think, except for maybe like Darren Young, Wade Barrett, and Heath Slater, David Otunga. I think those are the only guys that didn't, get a complete.
Well, David Otunga went through a character change and went from like a lawyer to a plank of wood. In terms of
now they pull a string every now and then on SmackDown and he talks.
He spouts out catchphrases.
Or talks about John Cena's abs.
Kind of cute. Anyway, yeah, so super excited. I'm a huge Kevin Owens fan.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody who knows me and knows the show. I'm kind of curious to see where they go with this, man. I think they're going to pull the trigger, and I think they are going to, if not get footage from his time in ROH, I think they'll definitely acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, you kind of have to, because that's where half the story comes from.
So, going from our current Universal Champion as of the time of this recording to a former World Champion, WWE has granted Jack Swagger release from his WWE contract.
Sad day.
Swagger called into Beyond the Fight podcast on March 1st to confirm that he'd asked for his release from his contract and that the WWE had obliged. And also hinted at a possibility of maybe going to one of the bigger indies. Obviously, Impact Wrestling would be a good landing spot for him, or even more so, in my opinion, New Japan Pro Wrestling, or even possibly hinting at eyeing a career in mixed martial arts.
I mean, he probably, with the right training, he'd probably do good at mixed martial arts.
Hey, dude.
He is a tall dude.
Guy. One of the things with Impact is I know that Zeb Coulter, formerly Dutch Mantel, is actually now the head of creative in Impact Wrestling.
Oh, so I wasn't aware of that.
So obviously there's a connection there, with the whole Real Americans and what have you, if they wanted to kind of...
The problem is, at this point, is if he goes to TNA, who do you pair him with? Because so many of the big stars now are leaving there. So it's like, does it mean more to you to make money and then just kind of be like on a sinking ship, or would you rather maybe not make as much as you might in TNA and go overseas and
I could see this going
have better matches where you could make more money down the line,
right? And I think Jack Swagger's in like a really good position because he has kind of options now, because you have Impact Wrestling, who is at this point, and we'll get to this a little bit later with our next story, is kind of hungry for top tier talent now. You have New Japan, which is really kind of good at taking these WWE cast-offs. We were talking off air before this about A-Trainer Matt Bloom before he kind of got big, coming back to as an NXT trainer, going over to New Japan and making a name for himself out there. So they have this knack for taking these guys and kind of like doing more with them than they were able to do in WWE. And I think Swagger would be a good candidate for that. But then you also add in this whole idea of a potential mixed martial arts career. He's got some options, and he's not too old.
WWE ever knew really how to, also just didn't know how to package Swagger.
Yeah.
He had so much potential. I think some of his best runs were during his title run, which I think they gave up on him way too fast during that. And the whole thing with him and Cesaro as a tag team. I thought those were some of, his good runs.
And I do think that teaming him with Coulter was a really good idea. It kind of gave him like a mouthpiece, kind of like a Paul Heyman to a Brock Lesnar essentially. So not too bad. I'm curious to see where it kind of goes from here. The world is open to him now. So yeah, we'll kind of see where he ends up with that. Next story, speaking of people leaving TNA, it was confirmed earlier this week, hinted by Matt Hardy on his Twitter account on, I want to believe it was Monday, and then confirmed by Rebby Hardy on Tuesday's episode of Busted Open, that the Broken Hardys, Matt and Jeff, are officially done with TNA once their contract expires at the end of this week. I believe it is. Insane.
Very, especially because if you get a chance, if you're a SiriusXM subscriber, go listen to the Busted Open podcast or show. It is good, but the interesting thing I found is Reba Hardy's even like, they didn't even send us the contract until like 5 days before it expired, which, you know, from the standpoint of the Hardys were the most popular thing in TNA right now, that's kind of unheard of.
There's a very good chance that we wouldn't even be talking about TNA or Impact Wrestling at this exact juncture in time in the present tense if it weren't for Matt Hardy essentially evolving his character and giving him the creative freedom to do what he wanted. Like, you know, on paper, the whole, and it's been said a million times, the broken Hardy thing and the whole gimmick, all the pre-tape stuff at the Hardy compound, it was an insane idea, but it worked.
It did work. And look, it worked so much that WWE 3 weeks later tried to pull off the same thing.
Yeah, when they did the Hardys.
When they did the Wyatts versus the New Day. They shot it pretty much the same way.
Yeah, it was almost like a shot-for-shot recreation.
Yeah.
It was, oh my God. It was like that meme where it's, hey, do you mind if I copy your homework? Yeah, just try not to make it look too obvious.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. Like, and I get it with the Hardys especially. They know what their worth is now, and they know the fact that Impact really kind of like owes them one and needs to make them essentially like the top paid stars in that promotion.
Well, and I think ultimately that's why, you know, like Robbie said, that's ultimately why they said you could pretty much take this contract and shove it, because, I mean, they kind of felt, and they have every right to feel disrespected.
I agree.
We're saving your company, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
you're saving your we're saving your company, and you don't give us a contract till 5 days before it's our current one is supposed to expire. That's a little insulting as top stars.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see what's going on with them. I know they're still booked for that huge match that they have booked. WrestleMania
I'm still
weekend
excited for that
against the Young Bucks.
Yeah, that should be. Oh my. Super kick bonanza.
the promos back and forth between them have been absolutely fantastic. And I love this new day and age where guys in different promotions and stuff like that can kind of cut promos on one another via Twitter and stuff like that. It's really awesome to kind of see. Like,
I mean, just the fact of when Matt Hardy showed up on I guess the Titantron or whatever they call their
in ROH
just the pop that went off.
Oh yeah. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see where this goes.
Now, do you think they go back to WWE?
This is exactly what I was just going to ask you. I think they do. But my big question is, does Vince and company give them the creative freedom to continue?
See, that's what I'm worried about too. Like, what if there's a contract out there, but they don't let them do the Broken Hardy stuff? From what it sounds like, Matt Hardy's really in love with this gimmick, and by all rights should be. This was his baby and this was his brainchild.
Now, I will say that the Broken Hardy thing has become like a phenomenon in the same way that a lot of memes do, and I'm not saying that it doesn't have the legs to stand on a WWE platform, but you also have to remember that a lot of the WWE audience is familiar with the Hardys and their previous incarnations, and B, may not be as aware of the Broken. Now, there's been instances in WWE where, for example, when the Dudleys retired and they mentioned the Hardys, the crowd did the whole delete. So
yeah,
it is an awareness of what's going on with them, but maybe the more general casual WWE audience isn't ready for that. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if like maybe they just drop the gimmick entirely and just come back as the Hardys.
See, I don't know because I just don't know if they would want to come back if they couldn't do it. I mean, you don't know. I mean, you just really don't know where their heads are at, I guess, is really more of the situation. Like, would you still come back if you can't do your gimmick?
Right. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting, as Matt Hardy said, it's going to be an interesting week for professional wrestling, and it's going to be incredibly interesting to see what ends up happening with the Hardys going forward.
I will say this much. If they do come back to WWE, I want to just watch that first show they come back and just see how big the pop is for...
Do you put them on Raw?
I think you kind of need them on SmackDown. Like, yeah, they're worthy of Raw. Here's why I say that. I think they're worthy of Raw talent, and they are Raw talent.
But you got to remember...
I think you need that something else to just, spice up SmackDown a little bit more. Not that you don't have that right now, because let's be honest, in my mind, SmackDown's a much better show right now going forward.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I could see them going to Raw just because I know that's the A show. That's where they want your biggest names. That's where your big draw, your Goldbergs, your Brock Lesnar's, your Chris Jericho's. Like, they're all on Raw for a reason because those are the household names that put butts in seats. And Raw generally plays to bigger stadium or bigger arenas than SmackDown does. So we'll see. This is all, hinging on the fact that they do actually come to WWE. So
yeah, and plus, after WrestleMania, you got to wait and see who's retiring, who's who's coming up from NXT, and so we'll find out a lot in the next couple months.
Yeah. So our last little bit of news this week, it was announced on Monday via USA Today that Beth Phoenix would be the next inductee included into the 2017 WWE Hall of Fame class. She's going to be joining Kurt Angle, Teddy Long, Rock and Roll Express, and Diamond Dallas Page in what's already shaping up to be probably one of the best Hall of Fame classes of all time. It would be hard to argue otherwise. Now, you and I kind of talked briefly before we went on air. I know you kind of have mixed feelings on Beth Phoenix going in.
I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. She's a 3-time women's champion. So, that already, I just think, look, regardless if you agreed with it or not and agreed on the timing or not, this was the time to put China in. I know, and maybe it's just one of those they want to wait to make her the feature attraction. And hopefully that's just what it is.
And I think that's probably what they're doing. One, they don't want to come off as seeming like a knee-jerk reaction and saying like, "Oh, I
think at this point it's going to look that way no matter what year you put her in, just because no matter when you do it now, it's just going to look like you're only doing it because she died.
Truth be told, it should have been done before she was gone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think look, what's done is done. Everybody knows the story now. Just put her in.
Right. And I agree to that extent. I do think that they could hold off on China a year or two just to kind of make it seem from their perspective that it's not a immediate reaction to her untimely passing.
It was also just, I looked at so many other female wrestlers that should have probably went in before Beth Phoenix. That's not taking anything away from her, but
now, full disclosure, there was a lapse, and I think a lot of wrestling fans who are kind of coming back into the product in the last couple of years are in the same boat when I had a lapse in fanhood from 2005 to 2014-ish. And that was basically the bulk of Beth Phoenix's heyday. She and anything that I know of her career was never experienced firsthand, but always kind of going back afterwards and in various network specials and watching stuff like that. So, obviously going back and looking at her career, she was one of the 2 or 3 women really holding up a very flimsy women's division over that period of time. You're talking about the era of the Divas surge and and especially even the Divas title, that whole era. It was just
I think at that point, the only legit female wrestlers they had right then was her, Natalia, who was just kind of starting off. Mm-hmm. I think Lee Cool was there, but even them, I think Michelle McCool was
it still wasn't
Diva Search contestant.
So and it was a very dark period, and so I would say she's Hall of Fame worthy just based on the fact that she was one of the brighter spots in a very dark period of women's wrestling for the company. Not to mention, she has a good resume of moments. You mentioned she's a 3-time women's champion. Also, who could ever forget her Royal Rumble moment, eliminating the Great Khali?
That was one of the first things they showed with her. And like I said, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying I think I can think of other people at this point that I would put in before her.
If I had to make an argument against it, it would be that I think, and I would agree with you, combined with the idea that it may be too soon after her career ended. I don't think that we've had enough time to let her accomplishments kind of breathe and stand on their own in the grander scheme of things, when you can go back and look at women during the Attitude Era and the early Ruthless Aggression era that I think would be very deserving as well. I think, one, the fact that Luna Vachon isn't in the Hall of Fame is still a crime.
Oh, yeah.
I think the fact that Molly Holly needs a consideration. I think that somebody like a Victoria needs a consideration, even in an Ivory. These are all women that really kind of held the division at its last strongest point. You have a Trish Stratus and a Lita in, but these are women that were right in the mix with those with those two, trading off the belt and having a really good competitive women's division in that late 90s, early 2000s era. So, but either way, congratulations to to Miss Beth Phoenix. So I think it is deserved.
Mrs. Copeland.
Mrs. Copeland. Once again, and since last week's episode was a roundtable, we didn't get to discuss this, and I do want to touch on it briefly because I am a absolutely huge Diamond Dallas Page fan. I could not be
so happy that he made it into the Hall of Fame.
If you look up deserved in the the dictionary, it is Diamond Dallas Page.
I think I was right there with you. I don't think there was any bigger Diamond Dallas Page fan than
oh my goodness,
than me back in the like even to the extent of
Shawn. I know you kind of took some notes on Raw. What do you what do you got going on?
Got some notes. Gotta open them up here and remember where. Oh, there it is. All right. Well, we started the show with Goldberg coming out to the ring with Kevin Owens. First thing I got to say, Goldberg is awful on the mic.
It's so bad. I actually even tweeted out from my personal Twitter account something to the effect of I can't wait to watch Goldberg flub this promo.
It's almost painful.
It's pretty rough to watch sometimes.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't take too many notes on this opening segment just because there's nothing at this point that is going to convince me
it's hard
any way, shape, or form that Kevin Owens is coming out of this match Sunday with the belt.
Oh, I don't know, man. I don't want to show my hand too early.
I don't either because we got plenty of time to discuss this on
Sunday.
But to me, just a little, we'll discuss this more at length Sunday. I think WWE really showed their hand 2 weeks ago with the whole Kevin Owens turning on Jericho.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a little more in. This is an example of me giving WWE probably a little bit more credit than they deserve, but they also have shown me a few times that if you sit back and don't react immediately in the moment, that they might actually have a better storyline in place than what you think on the surface. I think we're in for not so much of a cut and dry match on Sunday.
I guess we're going to also debate that a little bit with your SmackDown segment too,
right?
With the one because there's another situation over there that I guess is open for debate of are we getting better or not?
Yeah. So interesting opening segment. I liked it for what it was. The thing that sucks is Goldberg is obviously not fully committed to this. And it just feels really forced. This whole feud for the belt really seems forced. I know Kevin Owens, God bless him, he's been doing his job and holding up his end of the feud, and
he's trying so hard.
That promo the previous week with the light and everything, or was that 2 weeks ago? I think it was.
The light was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Because he referenced that actually at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think Owens has been doing his job to kind of carry this feud to what it should be, but because of how often Goldberg does and doesn't appear on WWE television, and I don't know, I'm still kind of I'm not fully bought in. I'm actually, honestly, I'm not really fully bought into this Fastlane card as it is anyway.
The other thing I got note-wise for the opening segment is crowd seemed dead.
The crowd was, okay, so I'm a big Reddit user. And generally, I think what a lot of the people on the internet were saying was that this Green Bay, Wisconsin crowd might be one of the worst crowds of all time. They just weren't really into it. And then we'll kind of get into this later, but with the Seth Rollins segment, which I thought was probably one of the better segments on the show, they started a CM Punk chant, which...
Yeah, I thought that was a little uncalled for.
That was incredibly well,
especially during the segment in which it was happening.
Right. CM Punk chants are really just bad anyway, but just to do them during a really good segment like the Seth Rollins segment, completely out of place, and you're really showing your hand, Green Bay, Wisconsin. We expected better out of you, and I hate to say it, St. Paul, Minnesota, the next night made you look really bad.
Yeah.
So what's next after that?
Next I got New Day comes out, cuts. I'm sorry. New Day, I'm over them.
Yeah.
It's the same promos. It's pretty much the same, just repetitive, same stuff. I'm just kind of over it now. And now that they're not even the champs anymore, it's just kind of okay, so what?
I do think it was a good move to have them as the host of WrestleMania because they are one of your biggest stars on the roster, and they do sell
They are
merchandise.
entertaining to a point, but
I
it's
think
just
they still have their moments where I kind of get some entertainment out of it. The whole spoof on the Oscar flub from the night before was really bad with the whole, oh, we're just kidding, Shining Stars, you're not actually facing us. It was kind of bad. It was one of those like WWE tries their hand at making a pop culture reference and it's just falls flat on its face. But yeah, I get why WWE consistently still keeps them on the show because they kind of need them on the show. You know, imagine you're a young wrestling fan and you're going to a WWE live event and New Day isn't there. You're going to be extremely disappointed. So
well, yeah, and I get that, and it's hard for me because I do like all three of them individually, and I think this is the best gimmick to happen to all three because, man, they were just kind of floating around with no direction, you know.
Yeah, I still
in
think
the middle of the roster. That I think this actually helped each one of their career because it gave Xavier Woods a voice now and gave him a
something to actually do,
and it saved Kofi and Big E's career, you know, from just wasting away at the mid card.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I think it's getting a little stale at this point. But I see why they keep putting them on in these segments. You know, they have to give them something to do. So until something else should come along.
They ended up going up against the handsome Rusev and the hard body Mahal.
Which handsome Rusev was like my favorite main roster nickname up until hard body Mahal came around.
Well, then you're not gonna like this next note.
Oh no.
Both of them, New Day ends up winning as Kofi and Lana get into it. Rusev goes to confront Kofi, and Xavier Woods rolls up Jinder, or hard body Mahal. Sorry.
Mahal.
I love, too, during that segment, though, that Corey Graves actually yelled at Michael Cole, like, you're not saying it right. You got to put more emphasis on the hard, but...
Corey Graves is a blessing.
He is. At the end of the match, Rusev and Mahal get into it. It's kind of looking like they're breaking those two up, which I'm kind of sad. I wish they'd give them a little more time because, again, that's another one where it gives them something to do.
Yeah, yeah. If they break them up, it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens because it is cool to see them on TV, at least doing something. But, you know, I think back fondly to the WrestleMania moments of, you know, Rusev coming out in a freaking tank to fight John Cena. Yeah. Like, whatever happened to that, Rusev? That's what we need back. Like, but anyway.
Like the tag team, please drop the nicknames.
I love it. I love the nicknames. I'm gonna disagree with you.
It's just too much.
If they're not going to make Rusev into a monster like he was, you know, circa WrestleMania time when he came out on the tank, at least let him have, because he does comedy exceptionally well.
He does. He's actually kind of funny.
Hilarious.
You ever seen him on Up, Up, Down, Down?
Oh, fantastic.
He's fantastic.
Incredibly hilarious.
His English, believe it or not, his English is a lot worse than it even comes across on on TV. Like TV, I think they train him. Like if you just see him talking in normal, like without it, it's far worse than what you think. What do I got? Number 3, Enzo and Cass backstage promo.
This is
you didn't know?
This is one where I'm kind of getting tired of.
I'm kind of getting tired of him too, and I hate it because I really like Enzo and Cass.
Yeah,
but it's just like, well, it's you know, they get to the point where it's like, who cares?
You're taking something that was on the NXT roster, super cool and organic and fun, and kind of boiling it down to the lowest common denominator version of it. And you're getting this regurgitated. It's literally just made to print T-shirts at this point. And once again, from a marketing standpoint, I get it. But at the same time, like the shine is very much off the apple on this one.
Oh, yeah. And it's just... And if you don't give them the title soon, it's one of those... who cares moment.
Yes and no. Like I feel like they're about due for it. But at the same time...
I don't want to see them take it at the same time yet. Just because...
Right.
I think Gallows and Anderson deserve this title run, and they've worked too damn hard, almost a year, just to be like, okay, you won it? Oh no, now you lost it.
Right. It took them this long just to get their footing on the main roster.
That's kind of how I felt about how they, you know, granted, albeit it was to Owens, but that's kind of how I felt like with Sami Zayn a couple years ago when he worked they waited so long to put this title on him. He finally wins it next month. Oh, we're going to give it to Owens now.
Right.
Not saying Owens didn't deserve it, but
right.
Man, give the guy at least more than just a month with the belt, especially because you made him jump through all those hoops and made him wait so long for it.
That kind of fits Sami Zayn's character, but that's not the character of Gallows and Anderson. Gallows and Anderson should look dominating. They should have probably won the belts within like a week of being in the company. But I get what they were doing with the New Day and trying to get them to that record and everything like that. But it's still kind of diminished, and Gallows and Anderson, to their credit, have been pushing their way back up. But yeah, as far as Enzo and Cass go, I'm kind of over it at this point. I know the crowd still kind of gets into it, but even still, like, even Enzo's like promos that he's cutting on people are just a lot less imaginative as they used to be. Because I think in NXT he was able to get away with kind of getting edgier with it, and I think now we're getting like the watered down version of it.
I probably are.
Yeah.
After that, we had another backstage promo with started with Cesaro and Sheamus. Can I just say, first of all, Cesaro, I can't remember what the exact words were, but he was giving Sheamus a pep talk and something about crap smells or something. Just the fact that it came from Cesaro was brilliant. So I like that aspect. Also, Samoa Joe shows up. There's a nice little, for people that are familiar with both men, there was a nice little callback to ROH without actually specifically saying.
Right. And we'll get into this with their match a little later, but the commentary team did a good job of kind of putting over the idea that, it wasn't in WWE, but these two have a history with one another. So I do like how like Samoa Joe is like kind of just working his way through all the former ROH stars on the WWE Raw roster, like Sami Zayn, Cesaro, God forbid he runs into Owens, because they're just you might as well just get some ROH aprons on the ring and just call it a day.
Yeah. But no, nice little callback to ROH. Good overall promo. One of the more entertaining. Then, geez, we had like 3 consecutive
there was a lot
segments.
There was the same thing on SmackDown. Like the first hour of SmackDown this week was literally just nothing but talking.
Stephanie calls Mick Foley into the office.
Yikes.
She looks like she's going to, apologize for everything she had said to him in the previous week, only to pretty much tear him apart. And man, there's only a few things in wrestling that are hard for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like to this day, it's really hard for me to watch the Mankind Rock I Quit match from
with
Royal Rumble with the
chair shots.
With the chair shots, just because of the way it was set up with his handcuffs behind his
so
back.
He couldn't even like protect himself from the shots. Yeah.
It's just, that's one of those ones that like it's still to this day hard for me to watch. Mm-hmm. I think one of the other ones was Ziggler Del Rio championship match where they had, the double turn.
Yeah.
Where I think where Del Rio just kept kicking him in the head, and it's one of those brutal. This was kind of along the same, like not as severe, but it's like one of those like she just kind of like.
I love that we're comparing Stephanie McMahon verbally berating an older, more sedated Mick Foley to him taking chair shots to the head in front of his family.
But it's still just like one of those. It was still just one of those like, man.
I get where you're coming from with it though, but yeah,
it's like okay, it's it's not real, but it's at the same time it's just like, damn.
It's kind of It's funny because like growing up with like Mick Foley and knowing him as this like incredible like hardcore legend and
seeing the way he's portrayed now
and I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to see what the payoff is, but there is a rumor that's going around that post WrestleMania that we'll have a new general manager on Raw.
That might be our Hall of Famer.
That might also be a Hall of Famer this year. So we'll see.
That would be kind of interesting to see.
My only issue with that, spoiler alert, it's Kurt Angle. My only issue with that is that, and this is just me personally, Kurt Angle to me has always been more synonymous with the SmackDown brand. So like to have Kurt Angle come back to Raw and kind of be the GM of that would be kind of interesting from that standpoint. But like, I don't know. I could see it. Just whatever I need to do to get Kurt Angle back on my television, do it. Run it. Let's go. So what's our next segment?
We actually got back to wrestling.
On a wrestling show?
Yeah, on a wrestling show. We had some
unreal.
cruiserweight action. We had two of my favorite cruiserweights coming up right now. Akira Tozawa against Noam Dar. Other than Tony Nese, these three are my favorites.
Yeah.
Right now, just because Tozawa, man,
He's fantastic.
I don't even, if you haven't gotten a chance to see him yet,
I was actually
go watch it, because I mean, this man is something else. Like, just the quickness, the strong,
that's
sort of strong style, but it's definitely like, look, when he kicks you, it hurts.
It's not strong style in the same sense that you would get from like a Shinsuke Nakamura
or Samoa Joe.
Yeah, but it's definitely, his moves are all very impactful and quick. It's kind of stupid how fast he is. Like that snap German suplex that he uses as a finisher is.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's like, how many other people besides Brock Lesnar that had their finishers pretty much like, and it's not even really his finisher, but I mean, have a German suplex as a finisher, but it's just it's entertaining.
Different. It's different when Akira Tozawa does it, because he
does
has
it
that
so
snap.
quick.
It's just, and that bridge is just fantastic. And yeah, I was a big Tozawa fan going into the Cruiserweight Classic over this past summer, and kind of got more acclimated with him through that. But he's immediately already endeared himself with the crowd. You know, just that, like, that war chant that he does, that kind of like, you know, the you know, sorry if I clipped us there, Joe. But yeah, like, he's fantastic. And Noam Dar even too is absolutely
I like
incredible.
him so much. Like, they don't do a whole lot with him past,
but he's gotten a lot of exposure. Like, he's definitely one of the better known cruiserweights in the division. But
other than, I think right now the only other major, like, well-known cruiserweight that isn't with the company is Zack Sabre Jr.
And he was even in the CWC.
He was in the, but he just signed with New Japan actually.
Yeah. The thing with Zack Sabre Jr. though is I don't think his style really translated well to the WWE style and the WWE audience, because even just watching him in the Cruiserweight Classic, like, he's obviously a very talented guy, but he didn't win over the audience really. Yeah. And you know,
well, and it also makes me wonder why Kalisto's over on SmackDown. It would make more sense he's on
because you
Raw with the cruiserweights.
You gotta have somebody for Dolph Ziggler to beat up on a weekly basis. So Tozawa picks up the win in this one, as he has the last couple weeks.
Like I said, if you folks have not seen Tozawa yet, please, I encourage you, get the network or tune into Raw and watch this guy, because he's fantastic. He's fantastic. Post match, Brian Kendrick comes out and.
Let me correct you right there. That's the
Brian Kendrick.
Yeah, so they continue this narrative of Kendrick wanting to be Tozawa's mentor, and basically just kind of takes Tozawa forcefully under his wing. And Kendrick is now teaching him his, second or third lesson?
Monday was his third lesson.
So Monday night was his third lesson, which basically resulted in Kendrick beating the ever-living bejesus out of Akira Tozawa. So, and this kind of calling back to Tozawa rejecting Kendrick's advances to be his mentor a couple weeks ago on 205 Live. So
no means no, Brad.
This is one of the more, I like that now on 205 Live we're starting to get, and on Raw starting to get really good storylines kind of fleshed out between people. So, you know, not everybody's chasing the Cruiserweight title. You have Akira Tozawa and Brian Kendrick in their little program here.
And now Noam Dar, from what I saw a little bit on 205 Live, they got something interesting now that they're hinting at there's going to be a love triangle between Rich Swann, and Alicia Fox.
Yeah. So Rich Swann a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a week or two ago on 205 Live, actually kind of like dedicated his match to Alicia Fox, and it's kind of interesting to see how Alicia Fox is being used as like
the whitest black girl ever, but I love her.
Eesh. It's kind of interesting to see where she kind of fits into this whole 205 thing with first obviously
it's giving her airtime at this point. So I mean, I wish they'd put her back in the women's division, because she is a very good wrestler.
Yeah, she's a fantastic wrestler.
I think I kind of rank her with like a Naomi, where she's very talented. She just gets lost in the shuffle.
Well, and her and Naomi were both kind of like remnants of the last of like that Divas division that kind of like really didn't put a lot of emphasis on talented wrestling and more on look at the beautiful girls that we have. And I think they weren't really given a fair shake, but now you see people like Naomi and even to an extent Nikki Bella, who are kind of like taking advantage of this fact that now it's just a straight up women's division, and you're absolutely.
Well, I mean, because I remember Nikki Bella just used to be arm candy,
right,
for the longest time, and now she's turned into a heck of a wrestler.
Yeah, so, so pretty cool. I like the fact that they're continuing these narratives between Raw and 205, and I like that's not everybody's chasing after the belt, and everybody kind of has something to do.
We went back to the backstage yet again, where we had Samoa Joe kind of come up and give Mick Foley some crap, asking him if he's having a good day. Mick Foley says no, he's not having a good day. In fact, he hasn't had a good 7 months. Foley proceeds to tell Joe he used to respect him, but now he's nothing more than Triple H's puppet. Joe takes offense to it, says he's nobody's puppet, and Foley makes the match between Samoa Joe and Cesaro.
Yep.
I don't know about anybody else, but as soon as I heard that, I got super excited.
Yeah, no. We all know like that Joe and Cesaro can obviously deliver a really good match, so super good to see them put this in. And once again, it's just another really good showcase for Samoa Joe for those who aren't familiar with him on the main roster. So
that brings us to hour number 2. We start off with a Divas tag team match. Charlotte Flair and Dana Brooks come out. First of all, can we just get rid of Dana Brooks already? I mean, what purpose does she serve at this point? I mean, at least she used to at least be Charlotte's,
right?
Insurance policy, managers.
Well, it's kind of interesting how they're using her because like they have her come out with Charlotte very, very spottily. Like they're not really like consistent on whether or not what her relationship with Charlotte is. But then when they even like in this match, they had her come out with Charlotte, and then Charlotte goes, "Yeah, it was going to be Dana Brooke, but we're actually going to replace you with Nia Jax." And there was like a visible look of disappointment on Dana Brooke's face. So maybe they're setting something up there for after Mania with Dana turning on Charlotte. I don't know.
Apparently sleeping with creative isn't working out for her, depending on if you believe that or not.
Yikes. I don't put any stock into
that. Charlotte comes out. Man, she is such a good heel. She's definitely the spitting image of her father.
Yeah. She's ever since coming up to the main roster and even on NXT, she's definitely kind of owned this whole heel persona. She does it. She does it exceptionally well.
Comes out, cuts a very good heel promo on the city of Green Bay, which I love the fact that she forgot Aaron Rodgers' name.
Oh yeah,
she's
that
like,
was really good.
And your quarterback. She also shoots on Bayley. Bayley comes out and says that she's going to headline WrestleMania as the Divas champion. Charlotte proceeds to tell her that she's sick of her, which impromptu leads to the Divas tag team match, which is supposed to be Dana Brooks and Charlotte against Bayley and Sasha, to which, as Travis alluded to, Charlotte said, no, Dana Brooks is not going to be my partner. Yeah, Dana Brooks
got bumped out of that.
And brings out Nia Jax. Kind of weak Divas match a little bit for the 4 competitors in it.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's weak. It's just, and Raw suffers from this a lot. It's the same matchups we've seen over and over and over. If you look at SmackDown's women division, it's very apparently clear that we have a distinct women's division where different women wrestlers are in different programs with one another at different times and sometimes overlap and intersect, which we'll get to with SmackDown a little bit. But a lot of times they're just kind of all doing their own thing. And, if you turned into Raw and didn't realize that there was a women's division, you would think it's literally Nia Jax, Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha. There's nobody else that they bother.
But see, that's why I think that you need to put Alicia Fox back in there.
Right. So moving on.
Anyways, Nia Jax picks up the win for that team. WWE is definitely establishing Nia Jax as their monster diva heel, and she is definitely having one of the best runs in the company right now.
Yeah, she's definitely booked very strongly. Looks very, 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 very impressive.
After that, we go back to the backstage where Braun Strowman approaches Mick Foley and tells Mick that he demands a contract signing with Roman Reigns so that Roman does not run out on the match.
Right.
After that,
which we'll get into that later once we actually kind of get to that segment, but I've definitely got some feelings about whether or not that actually accomplished anything, but we'll kind of see.
We had Big Cass against Luke Gallows,
kind of another,
which for the second time in 2 weeks, I believe, good hard hitting, even though it was standard. And look, Strowman and Big Show was a lot more than what I expected. Good chain wrestling, good.
Yes.
Just overall a brilliant match out of both of them. This was kind of your more stereotypical, hard hitting, big guy, wrestling match where a lot of hands being thrown, a lot of, big boots and whatnot.
I think somebody like a Luke Gallows and like a Carl Anderson is just kind of the team that Enzo and Cass need, because Enzo and Cass, obviously they are what they are in terms of like promo and stuff like that, but not as well versed in the ring as somebody like a Cesaro and Sheamus. So I feel like there is another team that can get a good match out of these guys. It would be like a Gallows and Anderson, somebody who's been around the ring for a long time and kind of knows what they're doing.
Big Cass picks up the win with a big boot. I think Big Cass could be a singles competitor, and I think I think this was brought up on a show that I was listening to a couple days ago, and I kind of agree with it. It'd almost be better if Enzo was just his manager.
Right.
I mean, Enzo's not a horrible wrestler, but I think he kind of holds Cass back, and I think he'd serve better as Cass's manager just because he's got a great mouthpiece.
Right. And honestly, I
don't think they would either.
So, yeah.
Then we had Sheamus against Titus O'Neil, which, despite Titus's little pre-match beatdown of Sheamus, turned into nothing more than a squash match.
Look, which is a super, not to interrupt, super weird way to book that. Because, one, I think Titus did a really good job with the segment that they had showed previously with him basically trying to endear himself to Sheamus. And
we could be the Irish connection.
Right. Talking about his Irish heritage and what have you. Which
that was super brilliant. I like Titus so much, and I hate that they don't do it. I wish they'd put him back with Darren Young.
They keep doing these that would if at this
I think
point,
they need each other.
They would. At this point, that would be once Darren Young's back from injury. If they were to reunite the primetime players, I'd be on board.
Just because they're not giving Titus anything to do except for just kind of being like a comedy act and then getting the crap kicked out of him.
He just keeps getting into these little one-off feuds. Like, he had like the little one-off with the New Day, and then now he's got the little one-off with
Sheamus. And it's like it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, number one.
At least he's getting TV time, so that's awesome, and Titus is still a thing. And I think he's hilarious and can do a lot of cool things. But interesting that they had him come out and like essentially look dominating for like the first 45 seconds of this.
Then the bell rang, and then it's like, okay, you're done now.
Yeah, bro kick and then done, which, makes sense because the bro kick is like, a good finisher, but yeah, just do something better with Titus. Titus deserves better.
Then we had the Seth Rollins interview, which
segment of the show.
Yes. Couple things, my feelings coming out of this. One, Seth Rollins just has that way and almost like that sympathy, like when he's being, a heel, you hate him. Well, your standard fans, you hate him. Fans that know better either love him or hate him.
Right. I think a lot of like indie or internet fans tend to kind of like a lot of the way that a lot of people do with their indie darlings. They kind of like gravitate towards them because of their accomplishments outside of WWE. If that makes sense. But I agree. I think when he's a heel, he's easy to hate. So getting him over as a face has been.
But I mean, in this case, I just put Seth Rollins has this way to just bring any type of emotion out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, with this, how could you not just feel heartbroken and almost like bring a tear to your eye just because, just the sympathy in his voice and just the whole, the way that he.
I think this is the first time that he has really garnered that sympathy, though, because I think since he's tried to do this face turn. I feel like a lot of the things that they've done with him have kind of fallen flat on their face. And then I don't know if you're familiar with YouTuber Brian Zane. He made a really good point about this on his weekly recap of Raw and Smackdown. This is the first time Seth Rollins has verbally acknowledged atonement for and sympathy and sorrow for his actions, turning on the Shield and joining the Authority and stuff like that. This is the first time he's really ever acknowledged any of that.
He was still could be considered a tweener, I think, up until
and like last night pretty much solidified him as like.
But I mean, how could you not just kind of feel like you almost wanted to cry because you just felt so bad for him?
Yeah, and I think him saying like, "Hey, maybe I deserve this. Maybe I did this to myself." I think it was really what kind of solidified that emotional connection with Rollins. And a side note to this segment, I will personally fight everybody in the city of Green Bay, Wisconsin, for chanting CM Punk.
That was just so uncalled.
That is so bad.
It's such an emotional. It was such an emotional interview.
They're giving you the best segment Raw has produced, and probably since the Festival of Friendship, like one of the
such a good segment.
But it's one of the best segments of Raw this year, and you're gonna sully it with a CM Punk chant.
It was just uncalled for, and I cringed.
So, yeah, super good segment. Triple H and Samoa Joe comes out. Yeah.
And then that's about the point where, and I even kind of felt this way when he came out. There's no doubt in my mind that this match is happening now at WrestleMania. Because here's my thought. Here's the only reason why I think this.
So do you think this injury?
I don't think it's kayfabe injury. Obviously, he got hurt.
But you don't think it's as serious?
I don't think it's because why would they bring him out in the middle of the ring?
True.
Why wouldn't they just have him
do it like a
via the satellite?
Yeah, via satellite.
The fact that they had it in the ring at Raw, and then they had Samoa Joe and Triple H both come out.
Right.
To me, that's he's gonna wrestle, especially because they kept playing up the you're not coming back. You're not gonna make wrestle. To me, I'm just like, he's coming back.
I don't know if it'll be in a match at WrestleMania. I think they might just kind of like have him do an appearance at WrestleMania to kind of like further it a little further down the line.
I think if he can't, you got to kind of do something because I do agree at the same time, you don't want to rush him back because this is a second big knee injury in, a year and a half. You don't want to make it worse than what it already is.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I don't know if it'll be a match at Mania, but I do know, obviously, and they put it all on the table right there, that there is going to be something with Triple H.
He's going to be at WrestleMania in some capacity.
So it'll be good to see. It'll be good to see Seth Rollins on WrestleMania. And even if it is just like a little altercation with Triple H, it'll be still good to have him on the show at the biggest show with the biggest storyline that you have on your flagship show. So, yeah.
We got into hour number 3 we'll just go over this briefly because nothing really exciting happened in the last 3 hours. The third hour passed Cesaro and Samoa Joe, and we still got to touch on SmackDown.
Fantastic match, by the way. And I agree with you. I think after the Rollins segment, that really kind of sucked the energy out of which Green Bay, Wisconsin didn't have a lot of energy.
Big Show destroys the Shining Stars, which they just need to get rid of Primo and Epico. It's not that I hate them by any means, but look, this is their third. Man. This is their third repackaging, and you're not doing anything with them.
Somebody's got to tear the ring down after the show, man.
I guess, but I mean, this is their third. Yeah. This is their third, repackaging. They're not doing anything with them except for just having them go out and get destroyed. I mean, look, if you're not going to do anything with them, just get rid of them at this point.
And we always have those post-Mania roster cuts. I could see them being.
I could too.
But anyway,
then we had a cruiserweight tag team match. Neville and my boy Tony Nese against
it was TJ Perkins.
All of a sudden I forgot his first name. and Joe's
new favorite wrestler,
Gentleman Jack Gallagher.
Good little showcase, and they'll touch on it a little bit more with 205 the next night. But
I'm gonna break Joe's heart. I don't like Jack Gallagher.
It's all right, dude. Not everybody's going to.
I think he's a good wrestler. I don't care for the gimmick. I think it's more than anything.
I love it.
But that being said, it is a lot different than anything else they've had for a long time.
It's connecting to the fans in a way that something like an Enzo and Cass don't, which is it's still making that connection with the fans, but it's not jarring, at least not yet. They haven't done anything with it yet that makes me want to change the channel. So
Crowd seemed kind of dead for this, yet again.
This crowd was just terrible.
Yeah. We go backstage to the training room. Sasha and Bayley are back there talking. Stephanie comes back, and obviously they're hinting that there's going to be a Sasha versus Bayley match
at
sometime real soon, because they keep putting it in Bayley's head that Sasha doesn't believe in her, which I can almost see Bayley turning heel in this.
Really,
just the way that they're presenting it and making her kind of try to think like Sasha's the one that doesn't believe in her and everything. I don't see it either, because she's so over with the crowd. I'm just saying, when push comes to shove, if that were to happen, that they went with the shock and awe where Bayley's the one that turned, I can't say I'd be surprised, just the way they're setting it up.
Right.
We already talked about Beth Phoenix is going into the Hall of Fame. We had the best match of the night, as we discussed, Samoa Joe and Cesaro. My
fantastic,
gosh,
great match. I mean, you already knew these two were going to put on a great match, kind of just on paper, just knowing their history with each other and the work rate that these guys have. But yeah, best match of the night.
Samoa Joe comes out on top as Cesaro hurts his knee. Hopefully, I put in my notes, hopefully this is not the last time these two cross paths, because I really enjoyed it. Samoa Joe cuts an interview. Sami Zayn comes out and attacks Joe. Joe fights back. I'll cover my whole thoughts on that match and my perspective on Sunday, just because I feel like they're dangerously close to booking Sami like they did Dean Ambrose last year. But I'll elaborate more on it come Sunday. Then we ended the Raw night with the contract signing. I just put it's pretty much what you expected out of it. Just them beating the hell out of each other, and that was it.
I mean, surprising nobody, but internet wrestling fans are not excited about a Roman Reigns match. Like, I can't get excited for this.
I can't, because, again, I'll touch on this more at length. See, this is the hard thing. I have a lot of thoughts on a couple of these matches that
Sunday is going to be.
Sunday's got to, is where a lot of them.
So you're saying that people should tune in on Sunday to listen
yes,
to
you should definitely tune in on Sunday.
Yeah, so
just because I have strong feelings about that Sami Zayn Samoa Joe match and Roman and Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I can't get excited for a lot of these matches, and we'll get into it a little bit more on Sunday. But yeah, it's hard. So it feels weird, because this is like the go home show for Fastlane, but at the same time, I feel like they're also trying to set up for WrestleMania. And we'll get to this in a second with SmackDown. Yeah. SmackDown, it's clear cut what they're setting up for. Like, everything that they're doing.
But that's also kind of how I felt about the whole Jericho and Kevin Owens thing ending so soon.
Yeah.
I thought that you could have waited a couple more weeks before you blew that up.
Yeah, and we'll see. But they have plenty of time between Fastlane and Mania to kind of tie everything up as well. So, moving on to SmackDown Live from 228. They are live in St. Paul, Minnesota at the XL Arena, home of the Minnesota Wild. Fantastic hockey team and organization. Opening segment has Dan Bryan and Shane McMahon backstage reviewing the finish to the Battle Royal from last week. Super funny how they can only get one camera angle, apparently, on this botchy finish, when every other camera angle that you would see of that clearly had AJ Styles' feet hitting the floor first. And Luke Harper, clearly should be the number one contender after that. But either way, we have one camera angle apparently available to us, and that dictates that we're going to have a number one contenders match tonight.
From what it sounded like, that whole thing was weird.
It was
like
a botched
someone
ending
screwed something up during that, and
yeah, it was a botched ending in some capacity. I mean, they've done their best to fix it, but so that starts us off with that, and then kind of a cool little segment there with AJ Styles interrupting to hype up the match a little bit and insulting Luke Harper.
that was some of the best,
I'm starting to like Luke Harper in his
solo
run.
I've always liked Luke Harper. I thought he was so underrated. He just got, and this is why the brand split is so good for guys like Luke Harper, who got lost in the shuffle because you had Roman Reigns, you had Seth Rollins, you had all these guys that you couldn't really do anything with him because, he wasn't going to be any more than a mid-carder with, on the same show as those guys.
And now he can be in that main event picture and upper mid-card now on SmackDown, which is why SmackDown is the land of opportunity.
It really is.
I love it. And speaking of Land of Opportunity, the opening segment after that would be...
God. How good was this opening segment?
Miz TV with John Cena. Immediately starts with The Miz cutting off John Cena's microphone and basically just laying into him for up to about 5 minutes, in which it's kind of hard to not agree with The Miz on some of the points that he made.
Which killed me.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the whole thing. Just so everybody's like, oh, well, no. Let me just be straight up and forward with everybody. I do not like The Miz. I have never liked The Miz. I've given, even when he was a face, I cannot stand the man. I cannot stand his gimmick. There's nothing about him that I've ever liked.
Right.
But I have to say, even my brother's like, look, you have to admit, and he's right. Ever since he cut that promo on Daniel Bryan, that shoot promo on Daniel Bryan on Talking Smack, who is hotter than The Miz?
No.
Just even on the mic.
Yeah, he is hands down. Just like if there was a award for Breakout Star of 2016 or Breakout Star since the brand split, it is hands down The Miz. He is on the mic and even in the ring. His matches have just become like a lot better now. I think a lot of them are based on who he's wrestling on SmackDown because they put him in promo in programs with, you know, people like Dean Ambrose and people like Dolph Ziggler who can get really good matches out of him. But The Miz is absolutely taking off. So basically the whole first part of this promo is The Miz just chopping down John Cena, which in and of itself would be enough for a great promo. But then when Cena's mic finally gets cut back on, you have John Cena lashing right back into The Miz and then even like acknowledging to the crowd like, okay, so watch what's going to happen here because I'm going to pick apart this entire argument that he had right in front of you. And he does it. He literally just picks them as apart, saying that he is a guy dressed as a guy playing another guy, tears them apart. So fantastic segment. Awesome way to open the show on SmackDown. Ends with Maurice inserting herself into this and slapping John Cena, basically telling him that he's not quite the man that her husband is, and
there was an obvious package reference there.
Which is a little edgier than I think WWE's used to giving us. But this sets up perfectly for John Cena. Maurice slaps John Cena, and then
you shouldn't have done that.
And out comes Nikki Bella.
Best line of the night. You slap my man again, I'm gonna break you, bitch.
Whoa.
Nikki Bella just got super like.
Yeah,
she sounded like one of those ladies off the Maury Povich show, where it's like
she's looking for somebody to hold. She's looking for somebody to hold her earrings in the front row, like hold my earrings.
Hold my poodle, dog. Hold my poodle.
Oh my god, yeah. No, and it's super cool too because like now we're starting to get so obviously the persistent rumors seem to be true. We're building up for a John Cena, Nikki Bella, Maurice, Miz. Mixed tag team match for WrestleMania,
which they're saying is going to be either an impromptu Nikki's retiring or John's proposing.
Yeah, so or both maybe even. But on paper, when I first saw this idea, I didn't really like it. But now the more that I think about it, and John Cena in his rebuttal in this promo made a really good point where he said, "If I had the backstage pool that you think I have, I would be out here with the Undertaker right now." Obviously, alluding to the fact that a lot of people thought John Cena would be wrestling the Undertaker. And here's the thing: wrestling the Undertaker is probably one of the biggest rubs you can get at WrestleMania.
But is it still?
No, and here's my point. I'm glad you phrased it like that because I think wrestling John Cena at WrestleMania is one of the biggest rubs you can get. John Cena is the face of the company. And I think as a reward for the Miz's year that he's had, this is why we're getting this program. Because it is a complete rub to, I would not be surprised, and once again, we'll get to this when media gets closer, I would not be surprised to see the Miz go over John Cena at Mania, just giving him that heel heat and giving him that world's biggest rub because wrestling John Cena, the biggest name in wrestling currently, at the biggest show of the year, looks fantastic on a resume. So
because I feel like with the Undertaker, like now that he doesn't have the streak, Undertaker's still a name. Don't ever get that. But now you really just don't have any. There's no like allure there,
right? So I think this is a good program. I think on paper I didn't like it, but the more they're kind of building it and the more the way it's shaping up,
the one wrestling show I listened to, even they were stating, the the host said even what you just said
Mm-hmm.
on Busted Open. He's like, I really wasn't invested into this idea until I saw the way it was set up. And
SmackDown has a knack for taking these storylines that on paper I really wouldn't care about and making me actually invest in them. So kudos to them.
So yeah, that was a
second segment of the night. We have the 2 out of 3 falls match, Becky Lynch versus Mickie James. You think it's gonna kind of an interesting way they played out the booking in this. Obviously, you have James go up first with a McDT going up 1-zip. Becky makes it 1-1 with a roll up out of nowhere. Alexa Bliss comes down to ringside to distract the ref while Lynch goes for a pinning attempt. Becky Lynch goes to confront Alexa and the referee. Mickie goes to attack Becky from behind and accidentally hits Alexa.
Which I guess is okay, because I think down the line you need to break that up, and I think you need the Alexa Mickie match, just because it looks like right now Mickey's whole purpose
is to make
in the company is to help put over
Alexa Bliss
and put over the other women in the division so far.
And this is a smart way of doing it, because now you have a set up match where you can go back to that and say Alexa versus, Mickie is already set up. So whether or not this blows off the whole Becky Lynch and Mickie James feud is kind of remains to be seen. I think we might see one more pay-per-view match out of these two.
Oh yeah, I think you're definitely going to get another at least tag team match of some extent.
And it is good to see Becky Lynch pick up a win on TV against Mickie James and kind of get her heat back a little bit from that. So you got 2 backstage vignettes back to back with each other. The first of which being Luke Harper, once again kind of endearing himself to me a lot. He's really taking this singles run and
he's almost looking human now.
Yeah, you're starting to see a little bit of, he's still got that craziness to him, but you're getting
there's a little bit more of a layer to it.
Right. And that's followed up with Bray Wyatt kind of chiming in and kind of hyping what will be later in the show, his invocation of the WWE universe, which we'll
I can't wait till we get to that, because my gosh, was that ever the
got some good feelings about that. So the next match we got Luke Harper versus AJ Styles. Really good, fantastic match.
It was a good match. I sigh because it was a good match. I think the way everything's been booked up to this point,
you see what's coming.
The result didn't make sense.
I agree. I almost feel like it would have been better to have Harper win. Because here's the thing, there's a long persistent rumor once again that they're booking potentially AJ Styles versus Shane,
and you definitely could see that playing out when
I think Harper winning would have fueled that a little bit more and also freed up AJ Styles to kind of. But once again, I've kind of learned with SmackDown to maybe not question why they're booking the thing.
Well, and I still think we might, even though that's not the way we expected it to get there, once we get to the final segment, we still might end up getting to the point where we're still going to get to the end result where it still could be Shane and AJ, just not the way we thought we were going to get there.
Right. And I agree. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how we get there, but the roadmap is kind of like laid out. We just don't know exactly which turns are going to take.
And I hope that's where they're going to go with that, because honestly, AJ against Bray Wyatt right now doesn't make a whole lot of sense just for what.
No, I think if you're going to have, and they're going to have, we'll get to this later, but they're going to have Wyatt versus Orton at Mania. And if you're going to do that, it has to be one-on-one. It has to be, a true blow off to this storyline that they have been building since.
Well, and that's why Harper made more sense, because you had the whole Harper got cast out, and it's just like,
Bray
okay,
Harper, Luke Harper was right.
We'll get to that. But.
So, phenomenal match. Really good to see.
Really good match.
Harper is getting some really good work
I almost popped when I thought AJ was going to hit the Styles Clash on Harper, though, just because how much taller Harper is than him.
Match ends with a phenomenal forearm, but Harper gets his leg on the rope. Shane McMahon comes out to restart the match.
And here I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This is our WrestleMania, build up now.
Right.
Because AJ is going to be like, oh, you're screwing me over.
Mm-hmm. Kind of gets him out of the way. Shane McMahon takes a kick meant for AJ Styles on the outside.
God bless that man. He's going to be like his dad. He's going to be 60 and still taking shots.
Long story short, they get back in the ring. Styles hits the springboard 450 from the outside.
Really, also, speaking of the finish, really strange to finish on a 450 splash.
Well, you got to remember, he also hit the phenomenal forearm earlier in the match, too. So it kind of already kind of taken out some impact. So, but yeah, so as it stands right now, AJ Styles is your new number one contender. Bray Wyatt's still doing his invocation later, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Backstage interview with Nikki Bella and John Cena. They are interrupted by James Ellsworth and Carmella, who just had to insert themselves into the situation. Kind of a funny little backstage segment.
It's a great segment. Just tell him, James.
Yeah, right. And
you can't talk to my girlfriend.
Yeah,
my friend that is a girl.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So super little funny segment. It's gonna set up for a match next week between Cena and Bella versus Ellsworth and Carmella, which I think will be good because it's gonna get an idea.
I think they're gonna win. I think I could see a scenario where the Miz comes out and
yep. But it's gonna be kind of cool to see that tag team dynamic between, because they haven't really on WWE television acknowledged Nikki Bella. And
I was
John
just gonna
Cena.
I was gonna say back during we were talking about, they've really up until now, other than the Divas always throwing it, you're Cena's girlfriend. They've never publicly acknowledged.
You don't see them in segments together. You don't see them in interviews.
This was the first one where they've ever kissed on WWE TV and were in the same ring together. I think even.
Yeah, so kind of interesting to see where they go with this one. I do think it'll be a fun little match next week, but yeah.
Can I just say, how great would it be? Like, it wouldn't be great, but just this whole build up that Nikki may be retiring or John may be proposing. If John's just like, I'm dumping you.
Oh God, no. Oh God, that would make for the worst WrestleMania ever, which is hard to do because there's been some pretty bad ones. Next segment, Dean Ambrose comes out and absolutely murders poor Kurt Hawkins in what was supposed to be a match, but ended up being a slaughter.
Kurt Hawkins just can't catch a break.
Poor guy cannot catch a break. I do like this Dean Ambrose where he did the same thing with Ellsworth that one segment after I think it was No Mercy, when he came out and just in retribution from the night before came out and just absolutely murdered him and then left. I like this. Dean Ambrose comes out, takes care of business, and then just moves on to the thing that he's actually there for, which was to set up more of the feud with he's
still just
Corbin.
Amazing on the mic. Like he has these one-liners, but they're just so subtle, and
it's sometimes it's hard for me to see him go back and forth between like the goofy, like, oh, there's 15 minutes left on the meter, blah 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 kind of thing, and then serious. But I think if there is anybody on the main roster that pulls off that like goofy to serious back and forth very well, it is Dean Ambrose, and this is one of the better examples of it here.
Oh yeah, I'm actually looking forward to him against Baron Corbin. I think that's going to be a phenomenal match, and I think this is finally going to be Corbin's, this is your time.
I think you're right. Yeah, so a little more hype with that, a little, back and forth between them, and with Corbin being the big face on the Titantron. Then we get to a Dolph Ziggler and Apollo Crews chair match. So we're gonna graze over this because we've already kind of beaten this dead horse. I'm not excited.
This match was awful.
I thought there were some pretty cool spots, and one of the big things with this match was I think Apollo Crews looked very good in this match, much better than he has in quite some time, basically since coming up to the main roster, because he showed a little bit more personality here, which is, here's the thing, I can't decide what this Ziggler heel turn is trying to accomplish. Is it to make him look like a credible heel, or is it to elevate some of these lower card guys like Apollo Crews and Kalisto?
It would look like option B up until...
But here's the thing. Crews and Kalisto keep coming up on the short end of the stick in this one.
But they haven't really up until...
No, they've lost. They've lost pretty much everything.
No, they beat Ziggler at an Elimination Chamber.
Well, true. But beyond that, like... I just don't see how this... I mean, maybe elevating Apollo Crews a little bit, but like... It's not... This feud isn't helping anybody.
But here's my thing. You want me to care about Dolph Ziggler as a heel? You need him to beat someone more credible than Apollo Crews and Kalisto for me to care.
At this point, he just kind of looks like he's picking the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, because at this point, it's like, okay, you beat Apollo Crews, you beat Kalisto. Okay, so
cool, great. We're very happy for you.
And the way he beat him too, it was just such a chintzy like finish. Like, oh. I mean, granted, yeah, you dropped the man's throat across the steel chair. That was pretty brutal. But you beat him because you dropped him crotch first on a steel chair. Yeah, it was kind of like, really?
The chair to the larynx was I thought was pretty good. That would have been enough to end it for me. Like maybe have the ref call off the match at that point. But either way, this feud's not doing anything.
And why won't wrestlers ever? Why do they still have the wrestlers jump on the chairs with their stomachs or their backs? You know it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah,
I'm so done with that angle.
I'll never be able to figure it out. But either way, we need some sort of
something
I
need
come out of this.
Dolph Ziggler to do something more than just keep beating Kalisto and Apollo Crews for me to care.
So this brings us to the last segment of the night.
Oh my gosh, the possibly maybe one of the best ending SmackDown, maybe even WWE segments in a few years, like maybe since Rollins turned on the Shield.
So basically this set up with Bray Wyatt coming out for an invocation of the WWE universe and alluding to the fact that Randy Orton was now not only family and his brother, but was now at the Wyatt compound, which very shortly after Randy Orton appears via Titantron to Bray's pleasure. He's like, Randy, good to see you. Like, and then everything just turns sour.
It went bad real quick. Ooh. Can I first say not even just the promo itself, but the video, the way the videos went back.
Yes.
That was phenomenal. Like sorry, AJ, don't sue us. But I thought the video vignette back and forth was just
very
flawless.
Good selling on Bray Wyatt's part. I think he did a fantastic job selling the
Wyatt
emotional.
Was legitimately scary.
So basically this is it. This is the big reveal of Randy Orton saying, I was basically playing you the entire time. You gave me the keys of the kingdom and now I'm going to burn it down, literally and metaphorically, because after revealing that Sister Abigail was actually buried underneath the
Wyatt
compound, was going to burn down the compound and finally Randy Orton turns on Bray Wyatt and we get the setup of what will eventually be our WrestleMania match.
Which, it still gives me goosebumps. Randy Orton, I said back a couple months ago, if you can't beat him, join him. But once you join him, screw him.
Very, 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 very Randy Orton here. To coin a phrase, vintage Orton. As
now,
been thrown around.
Here's my question, because it could be argued: does Orton go into this as a heel?
See,
because that's a very heel-like tactic. Even though the crowd was clearly behind him.
That was one of my biggest things about that was it was kind of weird that. Yeah, generally speaking, Bray Wyatt is your de facto heel because of the way he's booked and the way he's portrayed. But Randy Orton literally burnt the guy's house down, and
with his whatever this Sister Abigail is to him, if it's his real sister or spiritual guidance, whatever,
with her remains included. Like, only in WWE would the guy who burns down another guy's house be the good guy. Like, that's just like, it's such a weird thing. But I think it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out. We obviously have a few more weeks before Mania to kind of flesh this out.
But and two, just the whole, Bray Wyatt needs to be commended too. Just the way his facial expressions.
He sold it beautifully.
The way he just, the screams and the
praying
and the whole, like, It made gave you goosebumps.
It was
an
emotional investment,
just because it was just the way he was freaking out. Like, he sold it so well.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with this because we do have now AJ Styles is quote unquote your number one contender.
But now this all goes back to now, like I said earlier.
And he confronts. I don't know if you watched Talking Smack.
I did actually watch Talking Smack.
Styles confronted them.
They said we got a lot of talking to do and we got a lot of stuff to figure out. So, like I said. It was presumed that we thought Luke Harper was going to come out of this thing and it was going to be a triple threat. Harper, Orton down. I mean, I think the consensus was we thought Randy Orton was going to be in this match no matter what. We thought maybe to protect Bray Wyatt, not to the extent of where it turned out.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like I said, we might not. I think we'll still get to where we expected to get. we're not going to get there the way we thought we would.
I didn't expect them. The only thing with this, and it was a fantastic segment, but my only thing with it was I didn't know if right now was the time to have Randy Orton do the big reveal of, hey, I was just playing you the entire time.
Yeah, I think
it felt a bit rushed.
A little bit.
But
maybe not as rushed as when they did it with Daniel Bryan, but...
Correct.
We'll wait 2 weeks and then just...
Right. But once again, we have 3-4 weeks before WrestleMania to kind of flesh out the rest of this. So it'll be interesting to see where they go here. I do think, and we kind of said this with SmackDown at the beginning, we have the roadmap and we have an idea of what it's going to look like come Mania, but it's going to be interesting to see how we get from where we're at right now.
And we didn't really touch on it, but also, what are they doing with Alexa and Natty? That was just a whole little weird situation, not to deter from the big picture.
No, of course. I kind of glazed over that, but
it was just kind of a little weird,
we'll see.
I'm assuming that it'll eventually turn into a match, but it was just kind of a weird segment that didn't
really didn't feel natural.
Yeah. It didn't feel like make a whole lot of sense, but right. I mean,
overall, SmackDown
is
good show this week.
Good show, and I'm sorry, but right now they're just blowing Raw away.
Yeah, Raw's had some really good shows the last couple weeks, though, but I think, SmackDown's not relying on the booking that Raw seems to do a lot, where they have, very predictable booking in the same match kind of over and over and just different variations of it. And SmackDown is getting more people involved in what's going on. So you have, a Luke Harper who's involved in this storyline, both in, something with AJ Styles.
But I think you needed to do that with Raw, because I think everybody's just going to feel cheated come WrestleMania when, look, if anybody thinks different, I'm sorry, but just everybody needs to prepare themselves for the Goldberg, Brock Lesnar World Universal Championship match, because it's going to happen. I think it's ultimately this leads to Brock finally gets his revenge.
Right.
But it's going to be good, because I think, can't promise, but this will get back to what we talked about last week, that, this gives a chance for the U.S. title to be prestigious again.
To get elevated.
Because I could see a scenario where
Kevin Owens
is going to lose the U.S. or the Universal, but get the U.S. title, because I think Jericho's is about to be up, just because he was supposed to be gone 6 months ago, I think.
Right.
He's had such a phenomenal run that they've kept him. So it's going to be an interesting couple weeks after Fastlane. I think initially, a lot of people are going to be mad come Monday, but once the whole it's the whole denial acceptance move forward, I think once moving forward, it'll be interesting to see what we get going into WrestleMania.
And I agree. This is the most interesting time of the year in all WWE storylines. But looking over at Joe, the referee, he's given us the go-home signal. So we're going to wrap this one up for this week. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Audio Suplex Live. As always, I am Travis. This is Shawn. We will see you Sunday for our Fastlane preview show. So thank you for listening. Subscribe, share. Thanks again.
Hey guys, we would like to thank the band Wax for our intro and outro music. You can check them out at waxoh.bandcamp.com. You have been listening to the Nerd Complex Podcast Network.